are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this, I forgot what day it is, Thursday, March 21st. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com. And I said the same. And I said the old link. It's gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. That's the second time this week saying the old link. But yeah, gsmcpodcast.net. So yeah, we're off to a great start here. Anyways, so let's get into what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about some of the proposed rule changes. I know I've talked about it before, but there's more stuff to cover as well. We'll get into that. Then we'll talk about some of the remaining free agents and get into where or potential fits for those guys. So we'll get into that. We'll also talk about Aaron Donald's comments on his retirement and what he had to say. And then for the final part of the show, I'll talk about the new Netflix series that's coming out. We had the quarterback series. Now we have the wide receiver series that's coming out with a bunch of big names. So we'll get into that as well. So with that being said, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about some more rule changes here. So the main one is the new kickoff rules. So kickoffs remain at the 35-yard line. Kicking teams will line up with 10 players at the opposing team's 40-yard line. Receiving team lines up with at least 7 players in the setup zone, a 5-yard area between their own 35 and 30-yard lines, with a maximum of 2 returners allowed in the landing zone. The area between the receiving team's goal line and its 20-yard line. Kicker cannot cross the 50-yard line until the ball touches the ground or a player in the landing zone or end zone. Kickoff players cannot move until the ball hits the ground or a player in the landing or end zone. Receiving team players in the setup zone cannot move until the kick has hit the ground or the player in the landing zone or the end zone. But yeah, so basically, they're giving more of an incentive for you to return it, because if it goes into the back of the end zone and it stays in bounds and then it gets kneeled into the end zone, then the team takes it at I believe it's at the 35-yard line. And, we were accustomed to seeing them, take it up to the 20 or the 25. But, yeah, now it's the 35-yard line. So now that kind of creates more strategy where, yeah, you're going to get a return. But, yeah, that's one of the interesting things. Kickoffs that hit the landing zone must be returned. Kickoffs that hit the landing zone and then go into the end zone must be returned or downed by the receiving team. Kickoffs that go into the end zone and are downed would give the receiving team the ball at their own 20-yard line. Kickoffs that go out of the back of the end zone would be a touchback at the receiving team's 35-yard line. Kickoffs short of the landing zone would give the receiving team the ball at their own 40-yard line. Penalties on scoring plays will not carry over and be taken on the point after attempt. So yeah, that is a lot of information. And yeah, I mean, again, it adds strategy to the game because, again, he's starting at the 35-yard line. I mean, the 40, yes, that's we've been accustomed to that. But yeah, I mean, now a simple touchback that is kneeled down, that ends up getting put at the 35-yard line. So that gives offenses obviously better field position. So definitely is interesting, and we'll see how that plays out. But also the other thing I wanted to talk about, I did talk about the onside kick rule changes, but also the hip drop tackle rule. So obviously, this is something that's gotten players hurt in the past. Mark Andrews, Tony Pollard. So basically what it is, for people that don't know, it's defined as grabbing the runner with both hands or wrapping up the runner with both arms, unweighting oneself by swiveling and dropping hips and or lower body, landing on and trapping the runner's legs at or below the knee. And this is, again, what ended up getting Mark Andrews hurt during the season, and Tony Pollard, I believe, in the play. I think that's what ended, how he ended up getting hurt was in the playoff game against the 49ers. And, some players are not really happy about it, because if that ends up getting implemented, there'll be a 15-yard penalty for players that, demonstrate that kind of tackle. So yeah, the NFL is considering implementing a penalty for what they term a dangerous hip drop tackle to enhance player safety. The proposal penalty would result in a 15-yard penalty when a player executes a tackle where they grab the runner with both hands or wrap the runner with both arms, unweight themselves by, like I said, by swiveling and dropping their hips and their lower body, landing on and trapping the runner's legs at or below the knee. Cameron Jordan voiced his frustrations on Twitter. The NFL Players Association, man, I can't talk today, has expressed disagreement with the proposal, stating that banning the hip drop tackle would be unfair to players and difficult to enforce. I do kind of agree with that, because, yeah, it's a tackling technique. So, yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. But, so an example cited of the potential dangers of this tackling technique is an incident involving Baltimore Ravens tight end Mark Andrews, who sustained an ankle injury from such tackle in Week 11 against the Cincinnati Bengals. Andrews refrained from giving an opinion on whether the tackling form should be banned, stating it would be an unfortunate event. The decision on whether to implement the proposed penalty will be made during the annual league meeting scheduled for March 25th through the 27th in Orlando, Florida. If approved, the penalty could come into effect for the 2024 season. So, that's a big one too. But again, it's kind of hard to enforce a technique, but I guess the players are going to have to learn to adapt, and we'll see how that ends up going. But yeah, I mean, it's gotten players hurt, and so we'll have to see what ends up happening there. But yeah, so you have that. You have the kickoff rule. I know I talked about the onside kick as well. But yeah, so there again, I think I did mention this before on a previous show, but yeah, so they're trying to adopt that XFL model. So we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening there. But yeah, there could be more rule changes coming. And I mean, for me, I like that the hip drop tackle is, at least they're trying to ban it, and you'll get penalized if you end up doing it. But again, it's hard. Because, and then the other thing too is, I mean, there's players that do it the right way and no one ends up getting hurt. But then you have, like the example that I just brought up, Mark Andrews getting hurt. He did come back for the playoffs, but at the time we thought it was a season-ending ankle injury. So again, it's very conflicting, but it's something that has to be addressed, because again, it gets players hurt, and how many times have I said on this show, don't like seeing players get hurt, but it ends up happening. So like I said, we'll just have to wait and see what ends up happening. They're going to meet about it next week, so we'll learn more when we get there. But yeah, I mean, the craziness of the offseason has kind of died down. There's nothing really, no really major news that has broken recently. Still some little signings here and there, but yeah, nothing really, earth-shattering. I mean, the latest thing, obviously, which I talked about yesterday, was the Jets signing Mike Williams. But, other than that, we are, we're kind of past the craziness. Now it's, like I said yesterday, it's more focusing on the draft now. That's our main focus. So, obviously we'll be gearing up for that. Also, make sure to check out, so I did end up going on Manny's show yesterday, the Chip Shot Football Podcast, last night. We talked about the AFC West. We went through some things, the Raiders signing Alexander Madison and the other moves that they've made, bringing in Christian Wilkins, and, talking about what the Chargers have done and the Chiefs and things like that. And it was a good time. And then we also talked about Chris Sims' rankings of his of the wide receivers for this draft class, and it did get some traction just because he ranked both LSU receivers at the top, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. was ranked number 3. Where you go and look at all these other mock drafts, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is, number 1, and then you have, Malik Neighbors, then you have Rome Odunze from Washington, and then you have Brian Thomas Jr. So, we just talked about that. Again, I'm not a college football expert. I mean, you could tune into the College Football Podcast here on the network. Tommy does a great job. But, at least from what I got, like I said on his show, and again, make sure to go check it out, Chris Sims basically was saying that sometimes Marvin Harrison Jr. has trouble separating from corners. Like, he doesn't have that breakaway speed. I mean, he's a 50-50 ball guy. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, listen, for the team that I root for, the Giants, I would love to have a receiver like that. But because then when he talked about, the LSU receivers, he said, like, especially Malik Neighbors, he's able to blow past people. Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't have that breakaway speed. But, I mean, I don't know. But that's just his opinion. That's not my opinion, but that's at least what I got from, the video that I watched on it. So, but yeah, we talked about all that on the show yesterday. Again, I was only on for 2 segments. So, but yeah, he reposted the show, reposted the segment. So if you want to see me on there, go ahead and check it out. It was a lot of fun. Again, it's nice to, have a conversation, because obviously, for the most part, it's just you on the show talking, to the chat. But yeah, no, it was good. It was good. But yeah, that's what we talked about. So, but yeah, and the other thing too is I just the way the show started out. I mean, I forgot what day it was. Instead, the old link for the tips. We're off to a great start here. And I was ready to go. I mean, I was waiting, to get ready, and then I just, fell flat when I opened up the show, and it's okay. It's been a busy last couple of weeks. So that's but there's no excuse. But even though I just gave one. But hey, it's good for some laughs, I guess. So when we come back from our first break, we will talk about some of the remaining free agents. So we will talk about some free agency stuff and look at some of the players that are left, potential fits for them, and whether I think it's a good fit for them or not. So, yeah, that's what we'll end up doing when we come back from our first break of the show. So, yeah, there is some free agency stuff that we will touch upon. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about some of the remaining free agents and potential fits for these teams. So let's get right into it. I have about, let's see, how many players we got? We got 7 players here. This is from an article that I saw, so I just wanted to touch upon it and give you my thoughts. So the first player is Stephon Gilmore. So, past couple of seasons, he's kind of bounced around a little bit. Played with the Colts, then he was with the Cowboys. So, he's still out there. And the potential fit they had was the Patriots. And obviously, he spent some years there, played really well for them. Won a Super Bowl championship with them as well. I think he had the interception in the Super Bowl against the Rams. But yeah, was a productive player for them. He's getting older. He's 33 now. But, I think he could be a guy that, again, doesn't have to be your top corner. But, I think he could still be productive. And the Patriots could be a good spot. I think, for the most part, the defense is still intact. I mean, I think what they really have to work on is, the offense. But, I think getting Stephon Gilmore on a cheap deal, you obviously have Christian Gonzalez, who's working his way back. Their rookie that they drafted in last year's draft. So, I think, I don't see that being a bad fit. Again, he's getting older, but, I see that definitely being a potential fit just because of the familiarity that's there. So then the next player is Jadeveon Clowney. Now, the potential fit they have is the Dolphins. And the Dolphins, they've released some guys. Christian Wilkins and Emmanuel Ogbah, Xavier Howard. There's been a lot of guys that they had to let go. They lost Anthony Van Ginkel to the Vikings. So, yeah, they did, bring in Shaq Barrett. They brought in Jordan Poyer. So they have brought in guys to, at least somewhat replace what they had to let go. And Clowney, again, he was the top pick in his draft, and he didn't live up to that, but you know what? He still ended up turning out to being a good player, and the Dolphins, I think, could be a good spot for him. Actually, he's coming off of a season with the Ravens where he had 9.5 sacks, so that's not bad. How old is he now? Actually, he is. Clowney is 31 years old. But yeah, coming off a season, 9.5 sacks, 43 combined tackles. I mean, again, the Dolphins, they had to make a lot of moves this offseason to, help their cap situation. So I think Clowney could be an okay fit. Probably going to get him on a cheap deal. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But yeah, that's a potential fit. Then you also have Julian Blackmon, a safety. Potential fits the Buffalo Bills. And yeah, another team that made a lot of moves. They let go of Jordan Poyer, who's now with the Dolphins. Again, they're another team that had to, let go of some guys because of their cap situation. They let go of Tre'Davious White as well, who's going to be meeting with teams. So, they need safety help. Micah Hyde is, a free agent. And, so Julian Blackmon could be a possibility for them. So we'll see what ends up happening there. You also have another safety in Justin Simmons. A potential fit for him is the Indianapolis Colts. He's still out there. The Colts, this would be an upgrade for them on defense. He had a decent season for the Broncos last year. So, yeah, I could see that as well. But then you got a trio of offensive players. So you do have Ryan Tannehill, who's still out there. And a potential fit for him is the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos right now, they have Jarrett Stidham, and I think they also have Ben DiNucci on their roster. They definitely have Jarrett Stidham, but at least last time I checked, the other quarterback that they have was Ben DiNucci. Now, the Broncos are probably going to end up drafting a quarterback, I would imagine. I don't think you're going into the season with Jarrett Stidham being the franchise guy. And, Tannehill is still out there. You could plug him in, and he could be that stopgap quarterback. Again, I'm not expecting Tannehill to put up big numbers wherever he goes. I think at this point, he's kind of looked at as, a backup. Or, like I just said, a stopgap guy. Got replaced by Will Levis, last season. And, yeah, he's going to be looking for a new home. And when the Titans first got him, he replaced Marcus Mariota. Did very well. But it, it's kind of declined over the years. And, especially with A.J. Brown getting traded and things like that, kind of led to Tannehill now being where he is right now as a free agent. So, and the other thing, too, is somebody gets hurt, Tannehill's definitely someone that could be called upon. So, the Broncos, I don't know. Again, they're probably going to draft a quarterback, I would imagine. But I don't know if I'd go into next season with Jarrett Stidham as my starter. I would probably take Tannehill over Jarrett Stidham. But again, it's not really that much of a debate. But, so that's a potential fit for him. Then you got a couple of wide receivers. You got Odell Beckham Jr. So the Chargers are a potential fit for him. Again, familiar with the area, played with the Rams, of course. Again, you could probably get him on a cheap deal. And the Chargers right now, they kind of gutted their whole offense. There's no more Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Gerald Everett. And people forget this, Gerald Everett's actually with the Bears, which I honestly didn't realize until looking at, when they, one of the Instagram accounts, I think it was CBS, they posted, all the new Bears weapons, and Gerald Everett was on there. So Everett and Keenan Allen are there. Mike Williams is now with the Jets. Eckler's with the Commanders. And, the Chargers are going to look very different next year. And, Odell getting him on a cheap deal, again, I guess you're adding another playmaker, but, it's just, he's not the same Odell that he once was. Injuries really derailed his career. Again, showed flashes with the Ravens, don't get me wrong, but he's not the same player. But, again, he's not going to command a ton of money, so maybe the Chargers can bring him in on a cheap deal. And you're playing with Justin Herbert. And I know Justin Herbert's been getting a lot of criticism because he really hasn't won anything. The talent is there with Herbert. And listen, they should have won that playoff game against the Jaguars. They were up 27-0. And that falls to the feet of the head coach at the time, Brandon Staley. But, he also is part of the blame too, Justin Herbert. Because, the offense really just was not doing much in the second half. But I'm hoping for a big year out of Justin Herbert. To prove the doubters wrong out there, because there definitely are some doubters. But, Odell, I think, helps because they're definitely going to draft a receiver. Now, I think the other thing that was talked about when I went on Manny's show yesterday was, well, could the Chargers potentially trade down and get more assets? Yeah, it's possible because this wide receiver class is loaded, and maybe you go after someone in the late first round if you end up trading down, or if you really like a guy that's there, if you really like the top wide receivers that are there, you're not, odds are you're not getting Neighbors, you're not getting maybe you're getting Neighbors, but Marvin Harrison Jr. is most likely going to be the top wide receiver taken. But yeah, if you can get Neighbors, if you get a Dunze, if you get Brian Thomas Jr., it's possible. But maybe you want to trade down and get more picks. That's also possible. Because right now, it's Quinn Johnston, it's Joshua Palmer. Those are your wide receivers. And then I think Darius Davis is like the number 3 wide receiver. So, yeah, they need to add to that. They can't go into next year with just those guys. So, and then on top of that, you got to, address the running back position because you did bring in Gus Edwards, but you got to bring somebody else in too. It's not going to just be Gus Edwards, man in the backfield. I mean, he did a nice job last year, but, you need somebody else to complement him. So, we'll see what ends up happening. So Odell, potential fit could be the Chargers. So then the last player here we got is Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is still out there. Now, potential fit for him is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers traded Deontay Johnson. Me personally, I think they're going to end up drafting a receiver at some point because they do like to do that. They did sign Van Jefferson, but I think Tyler Boyd is going to be a good signing for whoever ends up getting him. He was kind of that. He became the 3rd wide receiver, with T. Higgins and now Jamar Chase, of course. Again, curious to see what ends up happening with him because now with the Bengals, they could potentially trade T. Higgins if, he requested a trade. And, Tyler Boyd being a free agent, if you lose both of those guys, it's that hurts your offense. Now, of course, you have Jamar Chase, who is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. But again, you still want to have some of these guys around. But at the same time, can't keep everybody. And, Tyler Boyd in 2018 and 2019, he had over 1,000 yards. But, yeah, his receiving yards slowly started going down. But, that's because, they drafted T. Higgins, then you draft Jamar Chase. In 2021, he still had 828 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. But, yeah, then he had 5 touchdowns in 2022. Then he had 762 receiving yards. And then in 2023, 667 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, the receiving yards, actually receptions have gone down. But 2021, he had 67. Then he had 58 in 2022. And then 2023, he had 67 again. But I think wherever he ends up, I think he's going to be a good fit. We'll see who ends up bringing him in. Again, I'm not going to mention my team, but I would take anybody, really. But yeah, I think the Steelers, you're staying within the division. They kind of need another receiver, so I think he could be a decent number 2 to George Pickens. The jury's kind of still out on George Pickens being a true number 1. So, again, we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see where he could potentially end up. So, but let me know what you guys think. Where do you think these remaining free agents could potentially end up? What do you think about the potential fits for these players? So, before I go into our second break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. Okay, so we didn't say the old link. We're good. Eventually we'll be good with that. We won't be making mistakes, but it's just it keeps happening. This is the second time it happened. Yeah, the show's been great so far today. But yeah, so when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about Aaron Donald's comments on his retirement, what he had to say, and that is what we will do when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about Aaron Donald's comments on his retirement. And if you did notice, the second and third breaks of the show, we're going to be airing new commercials there. So, and I actually just got that text about that. So, yeah, so that was the first time. That was good. So yeah, the next break, I don't know what that one's going to be. So we'll find out when we go into our last break. But let's get into this third topic here. So Aaron Donald had some things to say. He commented on his retirement. So this is what he said when asked about it. He said, "I'm complete. I'm full. I think the passion to play the game is no longer there for me. I will always love football, but to think about going through camp and going through another 17-game season, I just don't have the urge to want to push myself to do that no more. I'm burnt out. If anything, the best way to say it is that I'm full. I'm complete. I'm satisfied with what I was able to do in 10 years. I think it's time for me at 32 years old to retire from football and jump into the next step of my career. It's time, of my career and my life, it's time to move on." He also said 10 years, 10 Pro Bowls, 8 All-Pros, 3 Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, 2 NFC Championship games, or 2 NFC Championships. And I keep getting an ad every time I'm reading the quote off of this is on a CBS article. 3 NFC West championships, went to 2 Super Bowls, won 1, lost 1. Yeah, so basically, yeah, he like he said, he just doesn't have the urge to play, and he accomplished so much that he thought this was the appropriate time. And if you go back to, and I brought this up when I talked about his retirement, you go back and you look at when they celebrated that Super Bowl championship, there was a possibility that Aaron Donald was going to retire. There was some rumors out there. And everyone's like, are you crazy? He's at the top of his game. Same thing with Sean McVay. I mean, all the Sean McVay stuff that he was, thinking about retiring as well. And then Aaron Donald ended up coming back. And, he played, in 2022. He played last year. And last year ended up being his final year. So it's not like this came as a surprise. I mean, it was shocking. But if you also go back and you realize that there was, some speculation that he was going to retire, after the Super Bowl, it's kind of not as surprising as it really turned out. But, I thought, hey, the Rams are gearing up for another season. They bounced back after, all those injuries that hurt them, the year after the Super Bowl. I thought, you know what, maybe they're going to try to, do it one more time. But I guess that's not going to happen. And the Rams, they got a huge hole to fill on their defense. And the defense was the problem. I mean, the offense, with the healthy Matthew Stafford, they looked really good. He got good protection. The emergence of Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams, and obviously Cooper Kupp coming back from injury. They looked really good. But the defense, was a little bit of a problem. And now it's going to be even more of a problem because now you got to figure out, well, how are they going to fill in the loss of Aaron Donald on defense? So, but yeah, I mean, it's sad when you hear a player saying that because, yeah, I mean, you don't, like for us, we don't realize what they, got to go through with the training camp and all the meetings and the off season, the preseason, the preseason, and it really is a long year. And on top of that, that entire year, I mean, you're getting beat up. Once you get to the regular season and you get to the meaningful games, I mean, and practices and OTAs, and it's a lot. It really is a lot. And if you're doing that for, like he said, 10 years, I mean, you got players like Tom Brady who are doing it for 20 plus. But, I mean, I think Brady still wants to play, but, he finally had to call it a career. Yeah, it is a lot for some players. And again, he accomplished a lot, and you don't feel the passion of it anymore. But, what's good for him is he does retire at the top. Because a lot of players, it doesn't happen. You kind of get pushed out the door. Injuries. I go back to Julian Edelman. I mean, Julian Edelman retired because of, all the injuries that he was dealing with. I mean, the last year he played, he was playing hurt. You look at Andrew Luck as well. Andrew Luck in his press conference, he just said he was in that constant cycle of rehab, and he just lost the joy of the game. And he unfortunately had to call his career short because of that. And, again, like, as a football fan, yeah, it sucks to hear that. It really does. Because, again, these are players that you grow up watching, and, you love to watch these guys play, but, they're also putting their bodies on the line, every single week. And, yeah, it's football season's a grind. As much as it's only, a 17-game season, although it's going to increase. It's going to be an 18-game season at some point, and then at some point down the line could be even 20 games. And they do away with the preseason. Yeah, it takes a lot. Guys play hurt the whole season. I mean, look at Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was playing most of the year hurt. And people thought he was washed. But, come postseason time, that he looked like the old Travis Kelce. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not really this isn't the first time we've heard players, come out and say stuff like that. So, it's just unfortunate because it's another great player that's retiring. And, yeah, he might be retiring a little bit too soon. But, again, that's his decision, and got to respect him for that. Now, in the CBS article, they make the comparison to Barry Sanders. So, both players received Pro Bowl recognition each of their 10 seasons in the NFL. They retired at the peak of their career due to diminishing desire to play, which, that's what I just talked about, Aaron Donald. Barry Sanders cited diminishing desire to play as a main factor in his shocking retirement at age 30 after 10 seasons with the Lions. And Aaron Donald announced his retirement at age 32 after 10 seasons with the Rams, expressing a lack of passion for the game and feeling complete and satisfied with his accomplishments. I really cannot talk today. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, he expressed feeling full, complete, and burnt out with no urge to continue pushing himself through training camp and another 17-game season. Is satisfied with all his accomplishments. Now, here's the difference that they said with Aaron Donald and Barry Sanders. Well, first of all, they played two different positions. One's on offense and was a running back, and the other's on defense. But while Donald had nothing left to prove in his career, Sanders chose to retire despite being less than 1,500 yards away from breaking Walter Payton's career rushing record. Oh, see, I did not know that. That's really interesting. Sanders prioritized personal fulfillment over individual records and chose to walk away on his own terms a quarter century ago, going out on top. Both Sanders and Donald were able to retire on their own terms, a rare feat in the NFL, which I talked about before, where few players get to exit the game at the peak of their careers. I mean, even look at Tom Brady, his last season. I mean, it wasn't great. Now, I don't think it was as bad as Peyton Manning's last year, although Peyton Manning's last year, his team won the Super Bowl. But Peyton, his last season, that was rough. That was rough to watch. And I went back and I watched his 2014 highlights, and that was like the beginning of the end, because he started off that season great, then he ended up getting hurt, and you could just tell, like, that was the beginning of the end. And then the following season, yeah, it just was not good. 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, he ends up getting hurt. Like I said, it's rare, for players to retire on their own terms. And, again, he was able to go out and, retire as a Super Bowl champion. But, yeah, I mean, you would have liked to have seen Peyton Manning go out with better stats and not 9 touchdowns and 17 interceptions in the regular season. And Tom Brady as well. I know people dislike Tom Brady, but yeah, I think if you're a Brady fan, you wanted to see him, at least give it one final run. But the Bucs were 8-9, and the Cowboys, went into Tampa and really just, blew the doors off of them. But again, a lot of people knew the Bucs weren't good. They finished with a losing record. They were struggling all year. So yeah, that wasn't really much of a surprise. But if Brady went and stayed retired after the Rams playoff game, then that would have been probably better. I was saying he should still come back. He's coming off of a great year. But yeah, you didn't have Gronk. The offensive line was weaker. So yeah, and Brady had a lot of other stuff going on off the field as well. So, but you know what? He's still retired on his own terms. So, and you know what? The 49ers were interested in him, so he could have came back and played again. And maybe we could have saw Brady against Mahomes in the Super Bowl in 2023, and who knows? Who knows what would have happened? But yeah, for a lot of guys, it's just sometimes you don't retire on your own terms. Look at Eli Manning. He's another guy too. They drafted Daniel Jones. He did have one more home start against the Dolphins, and the Giants played really well in that game. So at least he had that, and they went back to Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones, oddly enough, not really surprising, but he was hurt in his rookie season, and Eli came back in and played a couple of games. So yeah, but the Giants were kind of pushing him out at that point. Ben Roethlisberger, they were kind of pushing him out. It's hard, and it's hard for a lot of guys to walk away because it's something that football is their whole life, and you don't want to leave that. That's all you know. But guys like Aaron Donald, to bring it back to the original point, Aaron Donald said, "Yeah, I'm done. I accomplished everything that I could ever imagine, and yeah, he's content with that." And absolutely, you look at his resume. He played in 2 Super Bowls, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, Pro Bowls, every year that he's been in the league. He accomplished a lot. So, next stop for him, which I didn't say when I talked about his retirement in the beginning of the week. Next stop is Canton. Next stop is Canton for him. And, again, for the Rams, you're not going to be able to replace Aaron Donald, but you got to find a way to improve this defense if they're going to want to be taken really seriously in the conference. Now, again, I look at them right now as, being a team contending next season, but the defense right now is the issue. Because, again, love the playmakers on their offense. Matthew Stafford has still got some good football left. Just got to protect him, because he's a guy that's dealt with a ton of injuries over the course of his career. But yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about the Aaron Donald stuff. Like I said, he's, pretty content with his decision. We saw when, they were going for that Super Bowl, they had Eric Weddle come out of retirement and join the team for the playoff run. Maybe, if the Rams are making a run and they need a pass rusher, maybe they call him up and say, hey, we need a little bit of help here, and maybe he'll come back. But again, that's just another one of my hypotheticals, and it's not going to happen. So, but like I said, again, another great player that's calling it a career, and yeah, he's gonna be missed. He's gonna be missed. So, wish him nothing but the best in retirement. And once again, congrats to Aaron Donald on a great Hall of Fame career. So, when we come back now from our final break of the show, again, let me know what you guys think about the comments that Aaron Donald had on his retirement. But when we come back, we will talk about the new Netflix series that'll be coming out, Receiver. So we'll talk about who is going to be in this series because, obviously we had the quarterback series. Now we got the receiver series. We'll talk about who's going to be in it. I'll give you my thoughts. And that is what we will do when we come back from our final break of the show. And we'll see what this new this commercial is. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about the Netflix series Receiver. We'll talk about who's going to be in it. That commercial was it's a commercial that we've seen before. So for me, I thought it was going to be something different. It was just we kind of switched around the commercials. The newer one is the second one, the third one. That one's been played for break 2. So, I was like, oh well, I just kind of teased that commercial like it was gonna be something new because I had no idea, but yeah, it was the one of the same commercials that we been using. So, so I kind of feel a little foolish there, but that's all right. So let's talk about this new series. So obviously this is going to be produced by Peyton Manning's production team, Omaha Productions. So I haven't watched the full thing, but I did watch a little bit of the quarterback series, with Patrick Mahomes, with Kirk Cousins, with Marcus Mariota. And, from what I watched, it's good. It's good. I mean, obviously NFL Films is a part of this too. So I'm expecting this to be good as well. I mean, and it's a star-studded cast. So you have Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. That is a star-studded cast for this series. I don't know if there is a release date for this, but yeah, I mean, these are some of the best wide receivers, and you have a tight end included as well in the NFL. These are the top wide receivers. Well, you got Justin Jefferson, who is looked at as the top wide receiver. Then you have Devontae Adams as well, who, at one point he was the best wide receiver, but, obviously not playing with Aaron Rodgers anymore. You kind of forget about that. But you got those two guys. You got two players on the 49ers, and you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL that doesn't really get talked about as much as, Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams. So, I'm curious to see how this is going to be. For the 49ers players, I mean, I guess we'll see, what happened in the Super Bowl. We'll get some insight on that. I guess with Devontae Adams, he'll talk about, I guess, how the Raiders season went, going from Josh McDaniels to Antonio Pierce. Justin Jefferson obviously dealt with injuries, and the Vikings as a team dealt with injuries. At quarterback, you had Kirk Cousins getting hurt, and then, Josh Dobbs came in, and you had Nick Mullins playing. So we'll get some insight on that. And with the Lions, I mean, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, they made it to the NFC Championship game, and, they won their first playoff game in 30 years. So there's a lot of storylines for these players. So I'm curious to see what we are going to get out of this. But again, it's a star-studded cast, because as opposed to the quarterback one where you had Patrick Mahomes, who's coming off of a Super Bowl championship, but then you also had Kirk Cousins, and you had Marcus Mariota, who, this was one of he's kind of bounced around since he started out with the Titans, and it was a little different because he was kind of the stopgap quarterback. I mean, Kirk Cousins, he was the guy in Minnesota, and of course Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, arguably. I mean, I think most people say he is the best quarterback in the NFL, but there are some people that might not say that just because they're not happy with him, winning these championships the last couple of seasons. But anyways, so yeah, it definitely different because here you have, these are like the top players, at their positions. You wouldn't look at Marcus Mariota as, one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. And especially, he's kind of just been a backup. Now he's going to the Commanders, and we'll see, I guess he starts out being the starting quarterback, and whoever they end up drafting will sit behind him. I mean, I could definitely see that. I mean, he was backing up Jalen Hurts most recently, so yeah, he's kind of bounced around a little bit. And then obviously Kirk Cousins. Actually, what's kind of funny is, when the quarterback series came out, Marcus Mariota was the quarterback of the Falcons, and you had Kirk Cousins with the Vikings, and now Kirk Cousins is with the Falcons. I mean, I don't know if that's funny for you guys, but I don't know. That's just something I just thought about just now. So yeah, the quarterback series was a little different, but yeah, you had Patrick Mahomes there. But like I said, here, I mean, like I said, you got a star-studded cast. You got two of the best wide receivers in the NFL, along with Deebo Samuel and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who, they're all top 10 receivers. I don't know. I mean, I can't do a ranking right now. Let's see. Jamar Chase is probably, top 5. You got Justin Jefferson. You got Devontae Adams. St. Brown's probably top 5, I would say. And then who'd be in that 4th spot? I don't know if I'd put Deebo. I think Deebo probably falls slightly out of the top 5. But I think you could put Deebo in as a top 10 receiver. George Kittle is thrown in there, and he's a tight end. So, Kittle's one of the best tight ends in the NFL. So he's top 2, top 3. But yeah, regardless, you got a lot of stars in this next documentary, or docu-series. So I'm looking forward to it. Again, I only watched maybe 1 or 2 episodes of Quarterback. But again, from what I saw, it was good. So there's a lot of things that I need to watch. I got to watch that. I just recently watched Pulp Fiction for the first time, and that movie's been out forever. There's a lot of movies. There's a lot of series that I have to watch. But again, it's just I've been busy lately. It's hard to sit down and watch movies and documentaries. I finished watching Seinfeld recently. Those are 20-minute episodes. You're banging those out. You're watching 5-6 episodes a night, on a good day, and you get through that. But with movies and series like this, yeah, it takes a while, because those are, I don't know how long are these. How long were the Quarterback episodes? I think were they an hour each? I have to go on my Netflix app. Didn't think I was going to be doing that on the show, but let's see. I can pull that up. Let's see, Quarterback, and of course I didn't spell it. Oh wait, here we go. Quarterback. Let's see. So, first episode is 51 minutes, and that's the only episode I ended up watching. So again, I'll have to go through it. Yeah, so there's 8 episodes. So then, second episode was 46. Episode 3 was 44, 43, 43, 51, 50, and then the final episode was 56 minutes. So yeah, around an hour for some of them, and then others are around that 45-minute mark. So, but yeah, so I actually only ended up watching the first episode, but I liked what I saw. So yeah, I'll have to dive back into that at some point. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if this has a release date. I know, when I was looking into it, I didn't see a release date, but maybe there is one out there. Let's see. Let's do a quick little check here on when it ends up coming out. It just said, well, this is from 2 days ago. Yeah, announces new sports series receiver. Yeah, I don't. I don't see a release date. So I guess we'll learn more about that, unless somebody has the release date, and I'm not seeing it. But yeah, I'm not seeing it. It's going to come out at some point. So, but yeah, like I said, there's a lot of storylines that they can include on there. So curious to see how that all plays out. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think, if you guys are excited for that. Which player are you most excited about? Most excited to see their storyline about? I mean, I think again you got a star-studded cast, so it's it's going to be I know like they're starring in it, but like they're showing. I mean, they're going to be interviewing them and showing their highlights and I guess their background as well. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Who you're most excited to see this series cover. So, but yeah, I mean that's that's pretty much my thoughts on that. Like I said, things have kind of died down here in the off season. Again, there's still moves being made, but nothing crazy. But listen, baseball. We had the series in Korea the last 2 days, the Dodgers and the Padres. Make sure to check out the GSMC Baseball Podcast and get Sam's thoughts on that. I did wake up at 6 a.m. Eastern Time and check out the start of the game because I wanted to see Yamamoto pitch, and I think it was 3-0 Padres already, and he hasn't had a good spring. So, yeah, and then the final score ended up being 15-11 or 14-11. It was 15-11, I think. So yeah, high scoring game, at least the second game. But it's kind of weird though because those games actually count. Yeah, it was 15-11 the final score. Those games count, and then they go back to regular spring training. It's kind of odd, but baseball's done that before. And then also, let's not forget, today. Now we had the the first 4 games played already to finalize the bracket, but today is the first day of the March Madness tournament. I think the first game is Michigan State and I think Mississippi State. Let's again double check. Yeah, Michigan State and Mississippi State, and that'll be 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time. So it's coming up. So I'm gonna make sure to tune in for that. I have UConn winning the whole thing. I mean that's not very original, but again, not a college basketball expert by any means. But again, doing brackets are fun. So yeah, looking forward to that for the next couple of weeks, and then of course baseball comes back. And don't forget, we got spring football coming up soon. So we'll definitely maybe do a segment on that when that comes around. But I'm not gonna do a whole show on it. But and obviously that's the USFL and the XFL combining the UFL. So we'll see how that all goes. That's coming up actually. So. But yeah, so it's an exciting time to be a sports fan, and then on top of that, you got the NHL playoffs, the NBA playoffs. Those will be coming up soon. So there's a lot. And then you know what? At the end of April, you got the NFL draft. So the NFL will be at front and center once that comes around. So yeah, but like I said, as a sports fan in general, it's it's a great time. It's a fun time to be a sports fan. So yeah, with that being said, make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. The basketball podcast will be coming up at 12:30. So make sure to tune in for that. I'm sure Nelson's got a good show planned. You got the sports podcast as well, the baseball podcast, like I said. Yeah, so make sure to tune into all those shows as well. Give those shows some love. We really appreciate it. And again, like I said, if you did miss it, make sure to go check out last night's episode of the Chip Shot Football Podcast if you want to see me on there, talking some football with Manny. Again, it was a lot of fun. And yeah, so that is pretty much it for the show for today. The show got off to a great start with me just, drawing a blank on, what day it was. I almost said Monday, and then I again started saying the old link for the tips. So, yeah, and it's on the bottom. It's on the ticker. But, yeah, gsmcpodcast.net. Don't use the old link. But, yeah, that's pretty much it from me for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be back again tomorrow. 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.